What's going on, everyone? Miller and I will be going over the latest offering from Dying Fetus, coming out September 8th off Relapse Records, Make Them Beg for Death. Now, we've had a few tracks teased a little bit throughout this year, but finally the full length is here. And this is like a 5 or 6 year gap, if I do recall correctly, between albums here, which has been pretty long. This being their 9th full-length studio album, and John Gallagher, of course, the OG, he is pretty much Dying Fetus. He continues to deliver brutal riffs and vocals and just the overall package, man. If you're into brutal death metal at all, you know of these guys. You know of this guy in particular, John Gallagher. He is joined by Sean Beasley on the bass and Trey Williams on drums. Like I said, it's been a minute since the Wrong One to Fuck With album years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, and that was really good. I enjoyed that album, albeit a little long. This one comes back to that very comfortable around 35-minute mark. This one I think is around 37, 38. But Dying Fetus is, all their albums have been around 35 minutes. That's why one of the things I love about the band is they cut it down. They're concise with their writing. They get to the point. They deliver the message, and they don't overly dwell on any one concept or riff or anything in their albums. This one wastes no time right off the bat, and Lighten Through Agony hits you with blistering speed and really intense, fast-paced, and they still manage to fit, John fits those very staccato riffs in there, just a little snippet in there. And he also does a great job of maintaining melody, of course, throughout the riff and patterns, and there's this like slight black metal part in this song that's really cool that maintains a really captivating melody, I guess, if you will, amongst the blistering speed of it. Compulsion for Cruelty is one of my favorites on here, and John's one of the few vocalists, death metal wise, that I really enjoy listening to, because he's like kind of tangible. You can kind of understand what he's saying, but it's not so far off that there's no way you can make it out. And his patterns, the way he fits everything around the music, is great. This song has a real kind of slam feel to it, which is what they've done. They're masters at it, the brutal breakdown slam type riffs. And what starts to stand out here is Trey Williams and his drumming. Now, there's a pattern in here that goes with this really chuggy guitar part where he's kind of riding these like 8 notes on the ride and then accenting the off time just once with the hi-hat. But then he transitions that into the next part, which is essentially the same guitar riff, but he then totally half-times the thing with that off-time China hit that once you listen to it, you know exactly what I mean. But Trey, that's an example right there of just super smart decisions on the drums and maintaining flow and kind of like giving you a precursor of what's going on next. Crazy ass tech death riff at the end of this song. I mean, the whole song really hits hard. John also gets opportunities to showcase his solo skills, and Feast of Ashes, the next song, another one of my favorites on here. But this is the first time in the album where he gets like kind of an old school solo spot in the song to just rip into it, and he does. Throw Them Into the Van is just a blistering fast 2-minute, just punch you in the face, but it still manages to give you that little headbanging groove in there for a little bit throughout the chaos that it is, and a lot of stuff in 2 minutes. The off-time feel kind of comes back in unbridled fury, and I especially love those off-time feels when they're sandwiched right between like some brutal death metal. It really makes it stand out, makes it hit harder. Again, it's just a good songwriting to kind of create those dynamics, which makes those heavier parts, those slower parts, really hit when you go from one extreme to the other. Again, John structures his vocal patterns around the riffs really well in this song. Killer riff at the end too, with like a dive bomb note in there. I love Floyd Rose tremolos, man. Dime. he made me fall in love with those things. And even amongst all the brutalness and the crazy tech parts and just the fury of notes and drum patterns, they still managed to change up the tempo and the pace and the feel of it. Aside from the two like brutal death and then like the slam halftime feel. And When the Trend Ends is a good example. The pace is like totally kind of different on this song, but it's a good balance overall between the tech, the brutal, the slam. Nothing is in excess either. It's really cut down and concise. Another Trey Williams kind of moment in this album comes in Underlying Carnage, where he kind of like starts out, he does this unique kind of snare pattern amongst like a double kick thing, and then transitions into the next part and takes that snare pattern and then directly translates it to the kick. And I don't know, it works really well. And it kind of gives you a precursor. He kind of sets you up of what is to come, and then when it hits, it just seems seamless and it seems natural and it seems like the correct direction that the song should go into, because Trey sets everything up in your head before it happens. And that's just, again, smart writing. Of course, this song is stacked with riffs and the super heavy breakdown bridge. It's just everything you want in a Dying Fetus song. Raised in victory, raised in defeat. Again, I would say like a lot of these are like, oh, my favorite song on the album, but there's a lot of songs that are just bangers on here. And this one is just an all-out assault on your ears, and just really hits the brutal tech thrash death feel to what they do. The last two songs on the album, Hero's Grave and Subterfuge, are kind of a good send of, although I think Hero's Grave would have been maybe a better last song just because it stands out amongst the two. I love solo intros though, and this song has that, Hero's Grave does, and I'm a sucker for those. And in the song, about 2 minutes in, there's just this insanely fast technical part that transitions into this really super groove, just heavy slam part. And it hits so hard because they go from one extreme to the other, and it's kind of seamless. They start with this blistering fast tempo, and then they kind of go into a mid-tempo thing, and they bring it in with that heavy groove, that slam breakdown, and it, like I said, it hits hard because they work from one extreme to the other so well. And although I do think Subterfuge is maybe not a strong closer, it's still a very good song, but the main riff just doesn't do as much for me when in comparison to everything else on the album. But overall, I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5 because this album has very few flaws. It's short. It's not overly short. It's 37 minutes. It's a great length. It's a perfect length for an album of this type in this genre. Like I said, with Subterfuge, I think that the main riff, or the underlying riff, the theme of that song, if you will, is a little basic in comparison to some of the other stuff on the album. The production on here is very crisp, precise. It's very good, although I would like to hear a little more bass in there to see what Sean's doing, but he's pretty much just doing what the song needs, which is just matching and hitting those rhythm notes with the drums when he needs to. And he doesn't overdo anything, and that's what makes this album overall and the band overall so appealing to me, is because they know what works and they stick to it. They don't branch off too much, but they manage to just create a brutal album that hits hard and still kind of like has earworms in it, even though they haven't changed the formula too much. They're just so good at it. And it's probably because I'm biased too. I just love this band so much. I've been with them since early 2000s. I saw them at iRock, and we went early, me and my buddy Chris. They were out there at their van cooking chicken quarters on their little propane stove thing, and we hung out with them. They were the coolest dudes. One of my first kind of interactions with a big band that I was super fan of, and they exceeded all expectations with how inviting they were and willing to converse, and legitimately seemed, like legitimately wanted to meet us and know us and get to know us and see our story, just as much as we wanted to hear theirs, which was awesome. It was killer. It was a killer time. And the only thing I felt bad at was there was maybe 16 people there or whatever, but it was a killer show, and they brought it, and their energy was insane for just being 14 people. So we really felt like we had to bring it, just because they were busting their ass up there on stage, and they're 14 people. So yeah, overall, check this album out. If you love death metal, you have to. You already know these guys, you have to. And this album, it certainly delivers. It's one of my favorites, I think, by them. So if you like the review, hit the thumbs up and subscribe and all that normal stuff. And of course, thank you all to our subscribers and really pushing the channel where we're going, passing the 15 on our way to 20, and we're going to keep going. Shirts are here and they're done. I'm going to make a little video or have a little snippet for that. We also got hats too, which I got one right here. So pretty cool, pretty nice little flex fit hats. And check out thrallsofmetal.com, and the store is up. Everything's good to go. So I'll be back tomorrow with another review. Cryptopsy album came out, and I can't wait to get into that one. So until next time.